Hey, baby, welcome to the Film Threat interview channel. I'm Alan Ng, and I have the privilege to talk to the writer-director of the Latent Image, Alexander McGregor Birrell. I pronounce that right?
You did. Hi, Alan. How are you? That's like my full, complete name, which is the first time I've ever used it on a project. And by all means, call me Alex. Like I never use it in real life. But.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Oh, is that like a, did you have to use the long name because of some guild kind of requirements?
Do you know? No, it was kind of like I've done some projects in the past where I felt like they were kind of learning projects. And it's like each project had a different element of my name. So in the beginning, it was just Alex Birrell. Then it was Alexander Birrell. And then finally, we've got to Alexander McGregor Birrell. So there's no more left.
I'm sure the next project you'll add more to it.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Latent Image. What is the basic story behind it?
Well, we meet a writer called Ben. He's a young thriller writer. He's had some success. He writes novels, and he's working on a new project. And he's taken inspiration from some real life events that have kind of happened mysteriously in this woodland location around a cabin. And he's using them only for inspiration. He decides to actually go to the cabin and kind of, get the sense of the place and really use it for his story. And at the same time, he's having some relationship problems and things. He thinks it'll be a good chance to get away. Everything's going fine. He's kind of scaring himself and using the whole atmosphere of the place. And then one particular night, a guy arrives at his cabin needing help. It's a terrible stormy night. And this guy claims to be a hunter who got lost in the storm and needs help. He's a little bit creepy. He's a little bit mysterious. And he thinks he doesn't get frightened because he's in the real world. He writes this stuff. He's not in one of these stories. And he thinks, OK, I'll use this guy for inspiration. I can sort of riff on, who he might be, what he might have done. Gradually, as he finds out more and more about this guy over the course of the first night, he starts to think there's something that doesn't quite add up. But he's still having fun with it, and he's going to sort of see where it goes. At the same time, he starts to find himself incredibly attracted to this guy, as well as kind of finding him someone who's quite sinister. So he's sort of interested in keeping him around. And that's until maybe he discovers some things that are a little bit darker. Of course he does, because that's the story, but I'm not going to spoil any of them. So
yeah, I know that we should stop there. So I'm looking at your IMDb and your background just a little bit. And so the question I have is so this film definitely falls in that kind of stranger in the woods genre, and the psychological thriller genre. What is your background, and what brought you up to this point to make this movie?
For me, it's always been, since I was a child, I've always wanted, the first thing I ever wanted to do was make horror films. It's always been the thing I wanted to do. And I kind of have a very wide bracket of horror films, which I think most genre fans do. So for me, Jaws is a horror film. Alien is a horror film. I'm sure Don't Look Now is a horror film. All these films. The whole psychological thriller for me is it's usually a horror film. I find the same kind of suspense and elements in it, and the violent payoffs and everything. There is definitely that difference. If it tends to focus, I think, maybe on the police and the investigation side, then that's kind of where it becomes a different genre. But this definitely isn't that, and so it's just always what I've really wanted to do. And I do come up with stories and always have that are also, supernatural and things like that. The ones I'm most into and the ones that made me love the genre were always kind of based in, let's say, like a realistic thing. So whether it was going to be a killer or, something like that, more than a ghost, or even though I also love those movies, just naturally as someone who creates something, I tend to create something with like a mystery and a killer and a sort of a suspense element.
Yeah, so now you're relatively early in your career. I think I see.
Very.
Yeah, did a bunch of short films, and I think this is your second feature.
Well, I don't consider, because a lot of them were sort of, how would I say, like learning experiences, or so the first one was very much a direct-to-video feature a long time ago. In the days when you shot on video, you really shot on video, like on like mini DV video. which seems like a different world. But yeah, that was that. Which was
just past the hooking up two VCRs together.
Exactly, yeah, literally. And that was an experience where it was great because we had a great group of people together with no money, no time, 2.5 weeks, make a movie on our own, and it worked and it got distributed fine. But it was kind of a learning experience. And then the next one was like a collection of stories, like a portmanteau film. So I only direct a very small part of.
So that was like a short film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, what as a filmmaker then? What brought you to this point? Did you go to film school or?
Yes, I did. Yeah, but a long way around. So what I did was, I always made stuff. I made stuff from back in the camcorder days. When you just have like a home camcorder, and then I studied film at university. But that is very theoretical. Like the, I don't know what you call it, but like when you have like the Bachelor of Arts and things, not a master, right. You're just going to do your first. It was wonderful, to see the cinema of the whole world, to write these great essays on it. Fabulous experience, but it wasn't very practical. After that, I decided, okay, I'm going to go out and get as much experience as I can. And I worked on sort of way more things than are on IMDb, like, short films, music videos, different things. Not just directing, like I did all sorts, like a Spark and a Grip and, all various jobs. And then after doing that for some time, I was then lucky enough to get into the master's program at the London Film School. And that was like my proper formation, where I came right in at the end when we still did, we shot originally on 16mm, then on 35mm. Then the Arri Alexa actually came in as I was finishing the masters. So we did the end then on the brand new Arri Alexa. And it gave me that sort of really classical filmmaking location, which I do really appreciate, because it actually helps you go quicker and be more efficient. And, a lot of that was put to use in making the Latent Image. Even though it was a low budget film on a very short schedule, we kind of made it in a traditional way, like no cameras that are just left to run for a long time or anything. It was very like, this is the take, and then all the
well planned out.
Yes.
I mean, that seems to be the key nowadays with movies, is the to get it in budget and on time, plan it out, get what you need to get, and then move on.
I had this like infamous red file that was about 3 times longer than the script, which I can't draw, so I do shot lists, and it was every single shot in the film, like all written with the scene. And then, what happens is you watch it with the actors, and you're seeing like maybe a master shot, and you think, this is brilliant. I actually don't need anything else except like one shot of the knife. And so you can like eliminate 17 shots, and you've got like this incredible one shot and then the shot of the knife, and you realize it's going to work, which was great.
Yeah, Roger Corman would be proud. So, okay. So let's move on to the actual production then. This is the thing I see a lot about indie filmmakers, and, because there's the necessity, there's not a lot of resources there, but the two areas are location and actors. So your location is the typical, indie films tend to be shot in a cabin in the woods or out in the desert where nothing's around. So yours is definitely in the cabin in the woods. Was that a budget consideration? And, how did you get the location?
Honestly, it wasn't for this. It came out of because the film is based on a short film I made in 2018. Which originally started as just a project that was almost kind of a show reel. There were no sort of expectations for it at all. But then after we finished it, it got into a couple of festivals, and we sold it to Deku, which is a gay streaming platform, and they streamed it for a couple of years, and it just got a nice response. Like people people enjoyed it, and I kind of thought there's a feature in this, and worked it into that. It seemed to fall really well into it. And obviously, if I'd been doing it like on a Hollywood budget in a Hollywood schedule, I definitely would have had like a scene where the writer lives in the Hollywood Hills, and we begin as he's closing up his lovely house, and then we get the drone shot following him into the woods and everything like that. But we don't need that. That doesn't help the story in any way, and we couldn't afford it. So it's literally just in the woods. But the entire short film is in the woods. So the scenario is about that, really. Definitely. I mean, it certainly didn't hurt the budget or anything, but it wasn't invented around a cabin we had or anything. Like, we really had to struggle to find it because there aren't many places that look like that in the UK. Obviously, we're pretending that we're set in America, and everyone I've ever shown it to didn't know. They really do think it's America, but we actually shot it in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the accent of the lead actor was tipped me off.
He's supposed to be English, you know, but like, I mean, when you go to America, like, it's full of English people. It's like,
well, the stranger's American, and that was like, okay.
Well, also there's a third character played by William Tippery, and William Tippery is actually half American, half Canadian. And I actually originally met him in Vancouver, but he lives in London now. So it was great that, you know, he was literally available and also the best actor for the role. And then Jay, who plays the stranger, he is from Vancouver, and we actually brought him over for the film because, you know, he was so good. He's also in the short film, and it just seemed, you know, ideal that he would play the same role. And also Josh, who is the English character, he's in the short film, and he actually co-wrote the short film with me. And again, he was wonderful in that role, and it seemed, you know, he's the right guy to play it in the future as well.
I expect you to say that he's from Spain or something like that.
Oh, no, yeah, no, not at all. That's his real accent.
Okay, so so then acting, because I think this is the other struggle that indie filmmakers have, is finding that you know, you're not going to get the A-listers, you're not going to get you know, the big Hollywood talent because you don't have the tens of millions of dollars required for it. Yeah. So where did you find your actors? So it sounds like was it Jay's your collaborator at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Yeah, Josh. It was actually a little bit easier than it might have been because I had, from the experience of the short film, the two main roles. It seemed almost pointless to look for anyone else because they wanted to do it. They were available. They were brilliant. You know, they just kind of fell into it. And then looking for the third main character. It was literally, I was planning on just doing auditions. And what was nice was it sort of coincided with Will, who I already knew, moving to the UK. And I thought, well, I'll see what, you know, let's audition Will. And he was great. And there was already that sort of, he knew Josh as well. It wasn't that difficult. And they're all, you know, Jay is, he's in a play right now in Vancouver, I think. And he's been in a lot of the TV that gets shot up there. He was in, roles in, I'm trying to think what the shows were. The one with Archie and Jughead, he was in that.
Riverdale.
That's it. And he was in, I think it might be Supergirl or a show like that was up there.
Yeah, I'm looking here. He's he's the Legends of Tomorrow and Batwoman.
That's it, Batwoman, yeah. And Will is also a wonderful theatre actor it's funny actually because they're such good dramatic actors, but they also have this big experience of musical theatre. That's one of the reasons I think why Will is here in the UK now. And it's funny because I don't imagine as a director like those two things kind of matching up, but it's amazing how it really does.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's some great actors who are known for musical theatre.
Yeah.
Okay, so also, so I'm gonna expose some of my naivete here, but it's also has LGBT gay themes in the film, and I'm just curious, you know. Okay, so here's where I become naive. I mean, is it, you know, was it just a matter of writing a thriller, or is it a matter of saying, okay, we definitely want to have gay themes in the story as well?
Honestly, it kind of just felt. Because I knew this was like, I wanted this to be my first, okay, this is Alex Birrell as a director and a writer, and this is what he wants to do. And he hasn't got sort of anyone to answer to, and he hasn't got a lot of means or time or anything, but he also hasn't got, you know, anyone to answer to. So talking about myself in the third person is very strange, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought to myself, you know, do what I kind of wanted to do and felt the most natural, and also felt like I wasn't putting. It was funny because Josh is a huge horror fan, and he of course co-wrote the short film with me. You know, we used to have conversations about how even only a few years ago we'd write things separately, and you would always create this lead female character, which is kind of the tradition in the genre. And it felt a little bit, sometimes it would feel a little bit dishonest because you were actually trying to write a gay man and you'd make it into this heroine. And then something happened in the world, I think, and in entertainment, where you suddenly didn't need to really do that anymore. And you could see these things where you could actually just tell the story that you kind of had in your head directly. And that's kind of what I did here. There was no sort of, I mean, I'm gay. A lot of the people on the shoot were gay. It was literally just about telling the relevant story as opposed to, you know, camouflage something or making a metaphor or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, like I said, we at Film Threat tried to uplift the independent filmmaker, and you know, and I like the fact that you did tell your story in this and didn't feel compelled to have to tell the traditional, you know, Hollywood story.
Yeah,
because you know this is the story that's natural to you, and also, you know, Hollywood won't fund this, and if they did, even if they said, yeah, let's make the lead character gay, it still won't be your story. And you know, they're going to twist and mangle it in a way that's, you know, that's not true to, well, I'll say this, it's not true to you as the writer and the director.
Well, I think as well, there's this thing where when it's got to be a large production, and potentially as well when people behind the scenes are talking about people who they aren't, there's always this, it seems anyway, just when you watch things, that everything always has to be very, very positive. It's like this toxic positivity. Everything's got to be like.
I like that term, toxic positivity.
Well, to be able to like let that go and just be like, okay, this person can be a bit messed up and they can have these flaws, and maybe it doesn't go exactly how they want it, and maybe, you know, and to just be able to do that without worrying about it was great, you know. And again, I was always very conscious of, like, you know, basing myself off directors I admire and love and who I'm nowhere near, and you know, but you sort of base yourself on them. That's what you do. And you know, if you think about someone like, say, Wes Craven or something making Last House on the Left, he's not the same person then making Nightmare on Elm Street, and certainly not the same person making Scream. There's like a definite, you know, changing the idea based around the moment. Like one thing's trying to be really down and dirty and shock people, then one's trying to be a bit more welcoming to people but still very horror, then the other one's trying to be horror but for a mass market, and you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to my gay friends, and you know, the thing that I've been frustrated with LGBT films is it's always about a coming out story, and it's all about, you know, the pressures and the oppression that comes with doing that, where I think we're ready now just to tell stories that start, you know, gay people, gay men, lesbians, and so forth. You know, it doesn't always have to have some kind of message around it, you know, just tell a story. And I think that's what I liked about your story here, is because if this were a traditional Hollywood film, the lead would be a woman and the stranger would be a man, and you know, we've seen that before. But here, because they're both men, you know, it lends a new dynamic to the story and allows you to tell it a different way. And I think what I got out of it was, you know, the two lead characters, in a sense, sort of like junkyard dogs. You know, they're placed in this confined space, and they're kind of standing each other off. And you know, one definitely being the alpha over the other, and then at the same time you have kind of a passion element to it. I mean, am I getting it right there? Is that kind
definitely? And I think as well, there's certain story things that maybe you couldn't do if they weren't two men, in the sense that there's kind of that sort of lingering kind of, there's very much, in fact, that lingering thing where you know, a man won't say to another man if something seems bothersome. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like if there was say there was a stranger appearing asking for help in the middle of the night, and it was a female character, there's no way I could justify, like, she's just going to tear open the door and go, oh yes, please come in and sit on the sofa, and like, you know, it just seems insane. You know, instead it would be a situation that we've seen in many movies where it's like, okay, you stay outside, I'll keep the door locked, I'll call for help for you, and someone will come and everything. It's kind of, it helps you in a thriller because you realize, well, that isn't necessarily how these two guys are going to act, only because one guy is going to be too ashamed to show that he is scared and nervous, and so he's going to have the bravado to say, oh yeah, don't worry, come in, and you know, that can lead to certain problems that we see in the story.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think that it just tells the story in a different way, you know, by changing out characters, by changing out the tropes of the genre, so to speak. And so let me ask you I want to ask this earlier, but you know, as our audiences, a lot of them are indie filmmakers, you what was the process in getting the movie put together, getting it funded? Was that did you already have a backer in place, or was it just kind of here's a story and let's see what we can pull together?
Well, I kind of went into this knowing that we'd actually managed to raise a good amount of the funding already in a way where we could have made a very don't know the right way. We could have made like a no budget movie that has a budget, but a very small one straight away. So I kind of wrote the script knowing that we could make this. And then we sort of scouted around to try to get other people. Originally, we were trying to film in Canada, and we found an interested co-producing partner. And that was all just because of COVID. We would have actually shot this at the start of 2020 because it was all ready to go from middle of 2019. So we had to then, obviously the whole world stopped. So we had to just stop everything for a year. And then in the interim, I'd managed to get more UK money together so as we could have a decent low budget here. And we were going to shoot in, I'm trying to get the dates right now, it's been so many years. In 2021, we were going to shoot. And then I honestly can't remember what wave or what terrible thing happened, but essentially everything shut again. So we had to cancel everything again.
It was Omicron or one of those.
yeah, exactly. And then we said, okay, third time lucky, we're going to go for shooting in January 2022 in the UK. Forget about trying to get more co-production. I took a lot of stuff out the script to make it fit the budget that we knew we had. And we did it. We managed to do it over those 3 weeks at the start of January. And everything went really well then. It was a month for the edit because we had the wonderful editor, Lisa, and she was... and also Anne, our assistant editor, they were actually on the set. So every day they could assemble what we'd done. We could watch it that night. I mean, the film, I don't know what they'd say about it because they're really wonderful editors and they can see a million things at precision and everything. But I think the film was 75% there when we'd finished shooting because they'd been assembling every day. Then we took another month to refine it. Then we went into audio post and picture post at the same time for 2 more months. And that was it. It was ready. And then it was sort of getting it to sales agents and all the rest of the exciting stuff.
Yeah. I'm glad you showed patience to do it properly. I mean, DIY is great, but you do want to have those good cameras and that good sound and that good lighting.
I have to say, I kind of got to the point where, and I love people who do that forever and love that and everything, but I just really want, I love, I don't want to say old-fashioned cinema because it's not old-fashioned. It's like, but the cinema where, as you were saying before, someone sort of planned it out and they're going for a specific aim within where the camera is or where the camera goes and, where the actor stands, do they move across the room? All of that, really nicely planned as opposed to let's shoot loads of things and then put it together later. So I'm really not good at that. I find myself oh, what am I doing? So it's to be able to, as you say, take the right, and the equipment was tailored to what we needed to do as well. We literally had everything we needed, but we had just what we needed. We couldn't have suddenly said, right, let's shoot something else. We had the lenses we had. We knew we needed things like, say, the split diopters, and I knew I wanted a lot of Steadicam. That was its own challenge because we could only afford that for 2 out of our 3 weeks. So we had to shoot everything that wasn't Steadicam in the first week, and then of course all the rest, in the next 2 weeks, that all had to be planned out. So
I've talked to a lot of filmmakers who are like, okay, we're gonna have this equipment this day, so this is what we're shooting this day. So I'm just curious then. Everyone likes to go to Canada to make movies, but what is the British indie scene like, specifically the low budget indie, and what are kind of the challenges and benefits of filming in?
I have to say, I don't know a lot about the British indie scene. There seems to be, there's a whole load of different levels, I think. Most of the people I know working in film in general, but especially indie film, are all based in Los Angeles. I've been lucky enough to sort of travel and meet people for things, and and I know a lot about that, and it seems just as vibrant and as you'd hope, with it being the capital of cinema, sort of, so there's a lot of people doing a lot of great stuff. In the UK, there's a lot of people who are very lucky to attract government funding, and they're all kind of indie films, because the government funded films tend to be always around the same sort of budget level. They're always less than like 10 million, and they're, you know, usually less than 5 million. And, you know, there's some great stuff happening there. You see a lot of the same names over and over again. It's very hard to crack into that. Because of course, with it being coming from the government, I think things have to not necessarily reflect certain things, but, you know, I never see anything, or haven't seen anything, I should say. Maybe there certainly will be, where it's just like, oh, okay, this is going to be a thriller, or this is just going to be a comedy or something. That doesn't really happen with the government funded films. There's always something else to it, which is great. And then there's of course a lot of you know, lower budget and micro budget films, but I don't really know a lot about the scene, I have to say. I really don't.
Oh yeah, well, because you know, we do get films from all over the world, and it's just kind of interesting to learn about, you know, what are the challenges for indie filmmakers. Australia has a burgeoning movie industry growing, and so always interested in that.
Most of these places, you know, they had one, didn't they? Like, and then it kind of went, and then now it's as if it's growing. You get like, yeah. I was talking to someone just the other day about all the wonderful Australian thrillers that I love and inspired from the 70s and the 80s, you know, and they were having money then, which seemed really low budget in those days. But if you look at like what $3 million was in like 1985, it's like having $10 million now or something, you know. And people don't get that unless it's maybe a Blumhouse movie or something, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the life of the indie filmmaker. So let me ask you this, just to kind of close things out. Are you working on anything right now?
Yes. I've actually had, I'm working on various projects. The one I'm most focused on at the moment is called Nightfall. I'm working with the producer of the Latent Image on it. And we've got a whole variety of meetings coming up, really. And then I have about 4 other scripts all written that I can kind of go, oh, you liked this, but not too much. Well, here's this, and then, you know, here's this, and they're all within the horror genre, and they're all very different. They're all within the genre, and yeah, any one of them I'd love to do at any moment, you know. But I thought it was better to hedge my bets and have as many ready as I possibly could.
Yeah, definitely. Because we know. And then lastly, the Latent Image. When is it coming out? I think you mentioned that you have an LA screening coming up.
Yes, so people who can get to the Lemley Music Hall on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills, it's showing from 7 p.m. on Thursday, the 7th of September. And on that Thursday screening, there'll be a Q&A at the end with myself, the executive producer, Michael Verratti, and I hope also the DP, Michael Thomas. And then it's coming out on VOD and DVD in the States on the 12th of September. And then I believe in the UK, it's going to be the 8th or 9th of October. That's still to be determined which precise date. And yeah, everyone can see it then. I hope they enjoy it.
Okay, great. Hopefully. And thanks a lot, Alex, for this conversation.
Thanks for having me on. No, I really enjoyed it.